So good afternoon again, everyone. We're going into the next session, which is a panel discussion around the theme of women in sports. And I will hand it over to the moderator, Harimohan Paruvu, who many of you may have met at HLF. He himself has written about sports. He has a novel that is sports-based. So he will lead the session. Over to you.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. So, good afternoon and welcome to the session on women in sports. Though we have been struggling to find out the commonality on women in sports and figuring out, because there are two men here and we have one woman, and but she's a champion, right? So, since we have limited time, let me quickly introduce you to Madhavi Latha Prathigudupu, who's written a book called Swimming Against the Tide. So there's enough of the tide that you have seen that she counters and encounters every day, right? So we will learn a lot about her life through the story that she's written. And to my right, we have another equally enterprising writer who's taken upon a pretty courageous job of writing about women's cricket in Pakistan. So Aayush Puthran is basically from Bombay. And the first question is, why is this boy from Bombay, who's a cricket journalist, writing about women's cricket in Pakistan, right? We'll find out more about that. So we'll get started with the session, and I'll first go with Madhavi from here. So quick intro to her life. So, and wherever I'm going wrong, you can correct me. So I think when you were 7, you had this attack of polio. 7 months. Yeah, 7 months. When she was 7 months, and high fever, went through wrong diagnosis. She couldn't recover properly. The time when she was pretty much paralyzed for most, neck down. I think in your village there were not enough. There were no qualified doctors, so. It went down south until I think when you were 7, when you had to go for surgery. And this surgery...
This time years.
Huh?
This time years.
Yes, now this time in years, correct. When you're 7 years, correct. It's all in my head. So when she was 7 years old, she went for surgery. One surgery on one leg went well, one surgery on another didn't go well. But I think one of the flexion points in your life was when the doctor said, put calipers on you and said, and she was like very happy to know that surgery has gone well and I'll probably be able to walk, which is what her mom told her. And the doctor said, no, you will have to live with this for the rest of your life. So which she obviously couldn't deal with for a long time, and she didn't want to use those calipers. But then she went to school, taught pretty much throughout school. What makes that interesting? It's a village, right? And she constantly had to seek the help of her friends, of her teachers. And if I think what you said, when you had to go for higher education, you wouldn't take it up because by the time you wanted to go to college, you didn't want to, because most of the time in school, you could crawl across from one place to another. And by the time you'd grown up, you obviously didn't want to do all that. And they wouldn't give her admission because of that. She did her, and again, very interestingly, maths, economics, and logic. She was the only person from her school to, I haven't heard of anyone doing her intermediate in logic, but she's one such person. And she was the only person there in that entire examination center. The entire examination center is only waiting for her to write her exam, and she did well. in that exam. So primarily it's been, her spirit that drove her. And then, of course, she um, went ahead, did your BA Math, then did her MBA. But one thing with her is she's very particular about what she wants to do. And once she wants to do that, she enrolls a whole bunch of people to help her, like how she did with all of us. She's constantly enrolling people to help her on her journey. Right, then she did and then of course she went ahead, got a bank job. Now she is vice president in an associate vice president in a MNC. She never stepped back, always taking exams. While doing all this, I think when in 2007, you would have been about close to 40, 37 or so, is when again, while she was doing very well in her corporate job, she had certain issues and the doctor said you have only about a year to live. And so you are actually looking at a person who was looking at death in about a year or maybe 6 months. And that's when she found a new lease of life when a physiotherapist suggested hydrotherapy. So she took to swimming, she learned swimming, and when there were some open swimming championships, she went and joined that swimming. I don't know why how you do all these things, but she went and she got a prize. But finally, I mean, she started the Paralympic Swimming Championship Association in Tamil Nadu, and she became the national champion, Paralympic champion, when she was 40. She won 3 golds. She continued that. Several Paralympic athletes she produced or encouraged. And then, of course, for most of us, this would be enough to do for a lifetime. But then she wanted to do wheelchair basketball. And she's the former president of the Wheelchair Basketball Association of India, which she started, and which is taking off in a big way. So that is, in a nutshell, what Madhavi is about. And so my first question, so I have a very simple format for most of these things. My first question is, why did you write this book?
Yeah, after starting my SV2 Can movement, after knowing the benefits of hydrotherapy and later sports, I started a movement called SV2 Can. After that, to spread that message, I have been giving talks at various places. But in talks, we will have little time, right? Maximum half an hour or 1 hour. So all the audiences used to ask me, have you written your book? We want to know more about you, because in that 1 hour we can't, or half an hour we can't cover more things. So the people used to ask me so many times, but because of this hectic schedule, I could not. But thanks to pandemic gave me that opportunity, because I could not travel during that time. I started writing this one. So, because many people asked, and it's my father's wish also to write my experiences. So finally it came out.
And it's a wonderfully written book, and she's detailed all her childhood experiences. It's a very evocative style of writing, and she's not missed out. I think one of the greatest things about the book is I don't think she's missed out a single name of any person who's helped her, including the boy who used to serve her tea in her office, right? So the same question, I'll now head to Aayush. And Aayush is very young, obviously, as you can see. And he's been a young cricketer, growing up in Bombay. Bit of cricket, very little. But he's taken to cricket writing when he was very young. So when he was 19, you started your first writing assignments with Cricket County. So currently he's working with Crick Buzz, and during the pandemic, for reasons which he will explain now, he decided to embark on this journey of writing about women's cricket in Pakistan. So it's a very interesting journey, because to write something like that, you need to, being a women's cricketer in India itself, you know, a while ago, there would be a lot of smirks on people's faces, women's cricket and all that. Now, obviously, they're not, because with the women's IPL now going for what? For crazy amounts of sum. I don't think there are any more smirks. So, writing about women's cricket, you need to know a lot about Pakistan. You need to know a lot about the social, economic, political background, and then set it from there, right? So I think the first question, why a boy from Bombay would write about, so why did you write the book on Pakistan women's cricket?
Uh, First and foremost, there was no literature on Pakistan women's cricket when I decided to write. So when I was researching, because I've done stories on cricketers from Australia, women cricketers from Australia, England, New Zealand, West Indies, South Africa. First time when I spoke to the Pakistanis, and this happened at a time when my knee was injured, I was on bed rest for a few months, and I was certainly not as courageous as her. So I found that as an outlet to sort of deep dive into their stories, because the first time when I spoke to them, I spoke to 5 cricketers from different parts of Pakistan, and invariably, all of them had the same issue of not being allowed to play outside their homes when they were growing up. They all belong to different socio-economic classes of the society, which is the case right now, unlike what it was, say, 25 years back, where only the rich and the affluent people could actually play and do a lot of things that are socially unacceptable otherwise. So it was pretty fascinating because I assumed that maybe their stories are just similar to what it is with the Indian cricketers. And I'm not saying their struggles do not exist in India, but all the cricketers that I have spoken to, or the interviews that I have read, or anyone who has made a mark and reached a certain level, it's only when they've got the support. So with Indian cricketers, you'd always find that, okay, their fathers supported their ambitions, their brothers played with them. But with Pakistanis, it was like they're hiding from their parents, their brothers, their neighbors. There's this one cricketer, Nahida Khan. She made her debut around 2009 and 10, around that time. And she couldn't tell her neighbors till 2017 that she's the one playing for Pakistan. She comes from Balochistan, near the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. So these were pretty fascinating stories. And I'll tell you a story of Nurina Shams. You know, we talk about people who made it, and they had to struggle so much. Some of them had to cut their hairs. Some of them had to sort of go without food. Some of them had to disguise as boys just to be able to play. And many of them have gotten beaten up. Their relatives have cut ties with them. But that is why these are the stories of success. What about those who could never make it? I'll tell you the story of Nurina Sham. She's a squash player right now. She had started out as a cricketer. I mean, at the age of around when she was 13 or something, there was this fight between the Taliban and the Pakistan army, and she lived in this border in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Lower Dir. And one of the missiles, sort of, I don't know whether it was misdirected or not, it basically brought the school down. And this is pre-pandemic, around 2009-10. So children were not allowed to, I mean, it was not normal for children to be staying at home. So that was the first time she got the permission to step out and play cricket. Because what would children do for 9 months when there's no school? You can't be staying at home all the time. So that is how she got to eventually play cricket. So these are the kind of struggles that you'd find, and it's bizarre, and they've made it successful. They've reached international level and they're playing. So that is what fascinated me. It's a story that I have never come across. I mean, I've been doing stories of cricketers around the world for 11, 12 years now. But something like this I've never come across. So I was fascinated. And the primary fact that it's not documented, the cricket itself. So that was sort of a motivation. So my leg was broken, I had nothing to do, and then there were 2 years of pandemic. So like her, again, just like sitting and writing a book.
So brilliant. But just to, is there a book on the history of men's cricket in Pakistan?
Yeah, so terrific book. One by Usman Samiuddin, one by Peter Obon.
Okay.
Stunning books, yeah.
Right.
And there's absolutely, in that, not in Usman's book, but in Peter's book, there's a brief mention, 2 pages of what happened with Pakistan cricket, but that's it. Otherwise, it's.
Okay, that's interesting. But what comes across with your story or your story? In fact, this whole women in cricket, women in sport, I think we'll rechristen it, and we should call this session, I'll borrow Ayush's book's cover, which is Unveiling Jazba, because this is all about emotion, it's about feeling, it's about desire to do well, right? But what comes across with anything with women achievers or women sportsmen is this thing about allowing, right? They're not allowed to do certain things. And this allowing word, I feel, is it's very interesting, how someone has to allow you to do certain things. And you didn't let that stop you, right? So how has your experiences been? What were the challenges you faced in your journey as a woman and someone with...
In sports or...
in sports, generally. Were you allowed to do... See, you had this big support of your family.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Yeah, but
It's
apart from
there,
that...
but still, they will have, like, with regard to particularly sports, they used to keep me away from even playground, thinking that while playing, if players fall on me, then I may get injuries. Such type of fears were there. But in general, you know about women, there are so many permissions from so many people we need to do anything. But in my case, it's a woman with a disability.
Right.
So that's why people think that particularly a person sitting in a wheelchair can't do many things. That's what people think. And when a woman in that situation, they think that fit for nothing. So from that situation, when I first time I decided to shift to Hyderabad from my native place Sattupalli for my job purpose, many people told me, you are a woman with the disability. So if you go to cities, you can't manage. In cities, people won't support others. So such type of things people told. But still, as you told in the beginning, if I wanted to do something, it's not my nature to stop. So my parents also, they're very, very encouraging. After reading my book, people are becoming fans to my parents. That's what I told. Generally, readers will become fans to the author, but here readers are becoming fans to my parents. So that's the support they extended. And then even when I left my government job, bank job, and decided to shift to Chennai to join a foreign bank, there also many people told, by that time my parents became old. Again, they told same thing. Your parents became old. You are a woman with severe disability, going to a native, leaving your native state and going to another state where you don't know the language. How would you manage? So now, many times I remember those words. But now I have so many people, friends in entire Tamil Nadu. After that, even in India, but when I started swimming association, that also you know that women in sports as players itself is very, very limited number, but women in sports associations, that is almost very, very, maybe percentage you can tell 1%, 2%,
Yes.
I don't know, Olympic associations I am telling. And when it comes to Paralympics, women starting are in the leading positions in sports associations was not there at that time. So we started state level association and next wheelchair basketball federation at the national level. But being a woman, what I did, whenever I started any association, I ensured that there should be some women in that association. Not only me, some other. And that helped us to promote the sport, no, particularly with women. Parents would have hundreds of doubts. I can understand everything because my parents also had all those fears. So, but they felt comfortable after seeing us in the association leaders' positions. So that is why wheelchair basketball sport, if you take, it's a new sport for India. Except a few rehabilitation centers, after we introduced it only, people come to know in India about this sport. In all other countries, first they started with men. Once men reached to certain level, then only they started thinking about women. But what we did, first training camp itself, we had women players. We ensured from the beginning, trying to encourage women players. But still I can't say it is 50-50%. But at least we had put so many efforts in that. But there are so many challenges. I saw that women players coming there also. Parents would have so many doubts about their security and all those things. They can't send just like that to how they are sending their sons to other places to play. For like that, they can't send. Even today when I am coming, I came alone to Hyderabad. Even now, my father was worrying about I am going alone, even after going to so many places, even to other countries alone. But still, the worry, concern will be there. So it is not about always that the problems are what, through my life experiences, what I realize, our problems won't come just because of other people are treating us inferior or all those things. Because of over concern, over love and affection, because of that also, people may not encourage women to take up senior positions. Even in organizations also it happens, no? So that's what.
Right. But this is wonderful story. I can't forget from your book about how your father. I don't know which exam was that in Vijayawada. He
Bank
had to.
job exam.
So the
Yes,
bank
sir.
job exam she went, and this is a problem. They won't let the rickshaw go from the gate to the staircase. So you'll have to carry her from the all the way from the gate to the stair. And I think you don't have a lift, so he carried her all the way to the 5th floor. And I think you were 19 and you said he was 50. And for a 50-year-old person to. And,
Carrying 20 years.
and he didn't have the energy to actually carry you to the last bench where. So they made sure that you were in the last bench, in the last floor. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, these kind of stories are, I mean, the kind of support you had
Amazing
from your
support.
father.
That's why I told you, no? Readers are becoming fans to my parents.
It's your tribute to your parents, looks like. So this allowed business in Pakistan. So the first story you wrote about Sabah Nazir, was it? And everybody quotes that. Harsha Bogleton, everybody's tweeting about how Sabah Nazir, this young cricketer, who had to hide most of her life, the fact that she's playing cricket. And because her brother and her father would not allow her to play, cut her hair, then all kinds of stuff, playing with the boys. And when she actually had to come out, what is that famous line? You can kill me if you want, you can cut off my legs, but I'll go and crawl and play cricket. Right? So that's the kind of madness or the kind of opposition you have to face, and you have to break that barrier and say, okay, kill me if you want, but I'll play cricket. And this is just about playing a game. So what did you find about this allowed business in, you've seen a whole bunch of Pakistani cricketers from.
Yeah, I mean, allowed business works even in India. I mean, it's not something that we are averse to. There's one thing, and I had to be especially mindful being an Indian man writing on these Pakistani women, and that's where Sana Mir comes in and says that it's not what it just seems like. It can't work in binaries. We have to understand that we live in certain socio-cultural setups, and even the killing, I mean, yeah, you can literally translate it to that. Kill me if you want, I'll crawl to the ground, cut my limbs, I'll crawl to the ground and play cricket. But she is an emotional Punjabi, and that's how they talk. Yeah, so a lot of things come out of, it's just a way of saying it, and that is how it gets translated, because there is a reasonable understanding that the West truly doesn't understand the socio-cultural complexities of the subcontinent. And they pick up certain things and see these things from their lens. So, but yes, I mean, allowed business is everywhere. I mean, especially in Pakistan. And the whole idea, the title itself, Unveiling Jazba, comes from the idea of the power of stepping out. Because the first challenge begins when does your family allow you to sort of step out of your house and just play recreationally, if not professionally. Uh, and I mean, that's a part of it. That is where your challenges begin. And then all the financial constraints, the structural issues, the fact that you have no avenues to play at all. There are no grounds because open spaces are dominated by men. Men can play at any, you give any patch of land, they'll start playing cricket. But those open spaces are not available for women. And in Pakistan, even for international cricketers, when they're playing international matches, you are not allowed to go if you're not related. As a man, you can't go unless you're related to the players or you're one of the organizers. So that is the kind of comfort they expect, and that is not available structurally. To make matters worse, the kind of facilities, basic net facilities, if a man has to sort of travel 60 kilometers one way by bus and come, it's much easier for parents to sort of let their sons go and do that. And it's not similar for the daughters. That's what Sana Mir was telling, because they're like, which father would have the heart to let his daughter go and be in a setup that doesn't give you proper food or proper place to rest? So what they were telling, and I can't be the one making judgments here. Even Saban Aziz said the same thing. She's like, had I been in my father's place, maybe I would have done the same thing. Uh, because not everyone is trying to control, but there is not enough security that the society provides us. The women and the families. The families were all the parents who sort of stood up against the society to support their daughters. They have taken on a lot of issues in turn. So yes, a lot of them do not make those compromises. Yes, there's many of them who are trying to control their daughters, but it's a very complex issue, which is what I was trying to put across in the book.
And you've done that very sensitively. And that's come across in all your reviews. But I think what everybody would also like to know is, how did you go about writing this book? Because the pandemic, you're sitting here. How did you find these resources? You had to speak to these women's cricketers from Fauzia Khan and Shaiza Khan, right? Shaiza Khan and her sister, Sharmeen. And these two girls had this dream of forming a Pakistan cricket team, and pretty much on their own, they pulled it off. How did you speak to them? How did you collect all this information and put together this wonderful book that you did? The process of writing it.
Yeah, a lot of writing. I mean, interviewing women cricketers, I mean, we have to be mindful because most of the times we are talking to men cricketers. And men, as you would probably know, open up the most when there's a private space. That cannot happen for understandable reasons with women. There are always people around, so they're not fully open to you. Over Zoom calls, it became a lot easier where they could open up and really say what they mean, because otherwise there's no one around them. It's just the interviewer and the interviewee. So these conversations happened over Zoom call. So the first person to agree took about 7 months. But once the first person agreed, then she sort of referred me to another person. That is how the trust sort of built, because they are also at friction with each other. Many of them, yeah, I mean, that's a typical Pakistan story, really. But when the trust built, and after a point when they realized I have enough matter that they can really get into the details. Even now, after the book got published, one of the cricketers reached out to me and she's like, Ayush, I really want to come and say the entire thing because I couldn't. So there are a lot of topics that I couldn't broach because, again, as a man, there's limitations. Like the topic of marriage is something that one cricketer insisted that it has to be there because it's a real issue. Because that is one of the primary exit points for athletes, women athletes, to leave the sport. There are issues when it comes to entry, barriers of entry, and there are points of exit. And one of the major points of exit till 2017 was marriage. The moment an athlete got married, she had to sort of leave the sport. Bisma Maroof became the first cricketer. Now she sort of gave hope to another cricketer, Kainat Imtiaz. So now you see there are these cricketers who are continuing to play even after marriage. So I could touch upon the topic of marriage because one cricketer sort of insisted that I need to do that. But there are a lot of other topics which I'm sure many others, because there's just a starting point to the literature of Pakistan women's cricket which does not exist. But it has to build on from there, and people who are, I mean, different versions have to come through. I am just giving an outsider's perspective to this, but only the day when this literature becomes irrelevant is the day it will really succeed.
Wonderful, very nice. Ma'am, the process of writing the book, how was it for you? How did you embark on the journey, and how did you actually?
I told you my family also wanted me to write this book, and also audiences suggested
Actual
me.
process of writing the book, how was it?
Yeah, that's what. After that, I was thinking, but every time because of that hectic schedule, I could not. But when this pandemic started, in March it started, right? In May, when I was giving a virtual talk, again one person reminded in that audience. So immediately I thought that, okay, I had to seriously think about that. So many doubts in mind, whether I had the caliber to write the book or not, I didn't know. Uh, so if I wanted to take help from others, somebody suggested, okay, you can like a collaboration with other person, you can tell the story and they will write. But there, then I thought that everything I only need to tell, right? It's my
Right.
story. I only need to tell. So instead of telling to other person, why can't I try? So like that, I started writing. So you know that I was a bookworm,
Right.
and now I didn't have that much time, but I read so many books. So because of that, I don't know. Within 2 months' time, I wrote that entire first draft. With that, I felt like, I wrote one book within just 2 months. It is just like a constructing a house, walls and a slab. After completing, we think that everything is over. But after that, only actual work starts. So there also, when this editing work started, then only I realized this editing, it's an unending process. Till last minute, whenever we read, we love to make some change so that our expression will be clear or something, some other point we may remember. So that was continued, and all my family members also supported me while writing in my childhood, what happened if I miss anything also. So finally, after doing that one, first when I started also, I think I took your suggestion also, that how to write, whether we need to go by in a chronological order or similar type of things like swimming at one place or wheelchair basketball sports one place. So many thoughts in my mind, but I went by chronological order majorly. And after that, editing, it took more time because, as I told, every time. And then after that, finding publisher. Everybody, the way people told, it will take lot of time to find a publisher. But in my case, luckily, first when I approached says at the time, they liked this concept very much because till now I think no book is there on wheelchair basketball in India.
Right.
So they liked it very much, and I got that first opportunity with the says, and now it is going to be republished with
Republished,
Ink
right.
Feathers and FROB supporting.
Right.
So
No, I'm so glad you wrote the book because your voice comes across so
yes,
authentically. You know, there are times when she says, I felt like crying, and you can actually hear her saying, I felt like crying when they said this. And it comes across so well.
and also you might have seen I made it very simple language
Yes.
because my readers should not take any dictionary, refer dictionary to understand. I made it in a very
Right.
simple language.
And I have to mention that this is your first book, right? And this is your first book. So congratulations to both
Thank
of
you.
you on this, and a wonderful job at that.
Thank you.
Right. So how difficult? I'm sure must have been a lot of publishers lining up to sign up your no. No. How difficult was it, or how easy was it to?
I don't know. I didn't want to get into the process of publishing,
Okay.
so I just got an agent. He
Okay.
ran after the publishing stuff, but
Okay.
yeah.
So we're kind of running out of time. So quickly, 7, 8 minutes. Should I throw it open? Okay, but I'd like you all, both of you, because we didn't have enough time to go into so many more things we could have. But what would you like the audience to take away? What is it that you wanted to convey through your book? If there's a
Nothing
few
to-
things that you want to put across and say, this is the essence of the book.
I don't know about the essence of the book. I mean, but just the story of people who don't win. I mean, stories and histories are written by winners. And you sort of see what is the underlying issue with those who don't win. Again, I'll just go back to Nurina Sham's story. I mean, just in the last 1 year, now in racket sports, what happens is that you lose rankings the moment you don't play a tournament. In the last 1 year, so she lives in this Afghanistan-Pakistan border. So one of the fringe groups of the Taliban that operates in that border. So every time they run out of money, they enter their territory and sort of loot the rich people. So the moment they enter the territory, nobody can step out. So she can't go out and practice. I remember once calling her, she couldn't go out and practice. The next Sunday I called her, she's like, I'm sitting here because the electricity is not there, so she can't practice again. She had a tournament in Jodhpur, she couldn't come because she didn't get the visa. Then she had a tournament in Australia. She couldn't go because she had the visa but not the sponsor. Then she went to US where she played. She had a sponsor visa, but she lost in the second round. And now she had to come to Indore again. She didn't get the visa. So the rankings are dropping. So now for these athletes who are not even making money, who nobody even recognizes them, what keeps them going in the sport? And there are so many societal hindrances that are anyway stopping you from playing the sport. So to understand, I mean, cricketers, even with the cricketers, the same thing. What are you playing for? What are you putting everything at stake for? Like with Sabah Nazir, that was the thing, you know, she'll go against the entire society, whether family is in trouble, she's in trouble, she got beaten up, but she cut her hair. But she would do all of that just for the madness of playing an activity, a frivolous activity like playing cricket. So it's just to deep dive and understand these stories of who are not necessarily winners, because in sports writing, it's always the winners that we talk about. So
Right. So one quick question to you, because considering you're very young and you've written a book like this, and it's a very powerful book. So how has the writing of this book changed you?
I don't know, it's a journey. I mean, you're learning every day, because I've been writing on sports every day, but writing a book, the process was different, and there's this constant pressure that, you know, they're telling you, the sort of advice is coming through is that as a writer you need to get your voice in, but the kind of subject I was dealing with, I couldn't get my voice in because I had no authority to be there and giving my voice to a subject like that. All I can do is just quotes. So I don't know, I stuck onto it, so I still don't know what the result is like.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, whatever I've read of it, and you should all read this book, because not just about cricket or women. Ma'am,
Yeah.
what do you want to say to the audience?
What I observed is there is a huge gap between the aspirations of persons with disabilities and expectations from them for the society. So that's why through this book, I want to help the readers to understand if someone tells after a few years we can land on sun, people may believe. But people are not able to believe a person with disability can work, can participate in sports, can do some other work. People are not able to believe why. Because we are habituated to live with two eyes, two hands, two legs like this. If these are not there, we can't do many things. That's what people are thinking. So through this story, I want to support our readers to understand that everything is possible for everyone. If we have the attitude to do, if you have the intention to do something, then we will find a way for that. So once everyone understands that, then life will, this world will become a very beautiful and welcoming place for everyone, not only for persons with disabilities. Always we will look into the world with our own lens, and we don't try to understand many times from other side what is possible. Now, before entering into sports, I didn't know that I can also enter into sports, enter into water. For that, to realize that, it took 37 years for us that I can also enter into water and swim. So now, after realizing all these things, I want to support all my readers to understand everything is possible in this world. Everything is possible for everyone. So that message I strongly want to convey through this.
Wonderful. If you read Madhavi's book, it's like, I remember reading Shantaram many years ago, and this story is about this guy, and at every page you're like, you want to tell him, don't do this, and he's continuously going into that pathway you don't want him to go. And this is exactly what Madhavi does. I don't know how it will be, you know, being around her, because she's constantly pushing, you know, the boundary and constantly doing stuff which is the most uncomfortable stuff, and pushing everyone to grow along with her, right? Brilliant. So I'll just throw it open for any questions if there are any. We have about 5 minutes for that. Any questions? Madhavi's done, you know, she rides a scooter, she has her own car, she's traveled several countries. I think now you joined a gym. Right?
Made a short film now.
She's made a short film.
Yeah, please.
So, hi, I'm Kavita. So, I just wanted to ask you, did you find any mobility issues while you're in Hyderabad or wherever, whichever place you're from? So, means the accessibility is a bit difficult for people in the wheelchair in Hyderabad and in our cities. So, how did you find it? Means moving around.
You need to ask your question which are the places where you are feeling comfortable. That will be the correct question because most of the places are inaccessible. So wherever I go, if I find any accessible place, I feel very happy. So we need to learn a lot. That is why whenever I give talks at architecture or students or engineering, civil engineering students, like that when I go there, I will tell them to the professors, you please give them an exercise that they should sit in a wheelchair and go around that
Yeah, the whole
city,
campus or
then
something
they
sitting,
will
yeah.
they will be able to understand what are all the places where they should be careful. So, but we need to go a long way. Many places are inaccessible, unfortunately. But I am seeing some change over a period of time. I could see some places accessible ramps are there, toilets are there, like that. But still, so many people are thinking keeping one steep ramp, that is the accessibility. Toilets won't be accessible, other places won't be accessible. We
Yes.
need to learn a lot. So, like we all know, like a dine in the dark, one restaurant is there, right?
Yes, yes,
If we
yes.
go, we need to, in
Move
the
around in
dark,
the
we
dark,
need to
yeah,
eat.
yeah.
Like that, everyone should try this one also, sitting in a wheelchair and moving around. So everybody will understand the challenges and in their capacity, whatever may be their capacity, in their capacity, they will start working, making the places accessible.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So any more questions? But both the books are available in the
In book point.
the books are available and the others are available for signing.
Yes.
This is Madhavi's book, and Ayush's book is somewhere there, Unveiling Jazba. And this is a very inspiring story. Ayush's work is a scholarly work for someone so young, and it should be read. So, I request all of you buy the book, get them signed, meet the authors. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.